Hello, good evening, everyone. My name is Catherine from SEB Housing, and tonight we're going to run the lottery for the 28 affordable rental units at Alta French Hill in Marlborough. So I'm going to get the lottery underway in just a few minutes. If you have any questions during this meeting or during this session, you can type the question into the chat function in Zoom if you're on your phone, or if you would rather unmute yourself and ask that question, that's perfectly fine. When you came into the meeting, you were automatically muted just to minimize any outside noise. And you also received a prompt just saying that the meeting is going to be recorded. That is so that any applicant who was not able to view the lottery but wants to do so after tonight can watch it on SEB Housing's YouTube channel. So just for some background information on who applied to this lottery, I'm going to give you some of that information. All of this information is also going to be provided for you in writing. It will be attached to an email with the waiting list that will be sent to you after tonight's lottery drawing. So all households who were approved for this lottery should already have a lottery application number. That was in the form of A dot, a series of numbers. So in this case, it's between A dot 001 all the way up to A dot 0076. If you don't have that number, or if you misplaced it, please let me know, because during this session, there won't be names called during the lottery. It will be that lottery application number. So there's 28 affordable rental units that are a part of this lottery. 72 total completed applications were received, so there's going to be 72 lottery households. The lottery numbers go up to 76 because there was 4 duplicates that we needed to remove from the lottery. So there's only 72 applicants. There are a total of 17 one-bedroom apartments, and there were a total of 13 completed applications for those units. Of those 17 one-bedroom units, one of those units has disabled accessible features, and one household indicated that they require those accessible features, so that household will have priority for that disabled accessible unit. There's also 10 total 2-bedroom apartments, and there was a total of 31 completed applications for those 2-bedroom apartments. Of those 2-bedroom apartments, one has disabled accessible features, and there were 2 households who require a 2-bedroom that were looking for a disabled accessible unit. So those 2 applicants are going to have priority on the waiting list for that. There was also 1 3-bedroom apartment, and there was a total of 38 applicants for that unit. So back when you completed your application, you indicated, and then SEB Housing confirmed your household type. And that is either type 1, 2, or 3. So keep in mind that on the 2-bedroom waiting list, type 2 and 3 households are going to have priority over type 1 households. Usually that really just means that larger households with more people are going to have priority for these larger units over a 1-person household who may not actually require that larger household size. And then type 3 households are going to have top priority on the 3-bedroom waiting list as well. And that's just because the affordable housing program is designed so that households don't have priority for units that they may not even require the size of. There's also a local preference or local priority for several of the affordable units in this lottery. So if you answered yes to the local preference question on the lottery application, that was because you either live in Marlborough, or you work full-time in the city, or you have a child who is attending Marlborough public schools, and we confirmed for you that you were going to be in the local preference drawing as well. We don't have confirmation from you that you're a local preference applicant, but just like your income information and all of that, you'll be required to submit that after the lottery takes place. So as I said, there's priority on these waiting lists based on household type, also whether or not someone requires disabled accessible features, and then finally, if someone has local preference. So all that is to say, when the drawing takes place tonight, you're not going to know for certain exactly where you're going to fall on these waiting lists. even if you're drawn first. So maybe you're the first household that's drawn. That doesn't mean that you're number one on any of these waiting lists, because we first need to sort the results from tonight's drawing. But the good news is the waiting list will be sent to you tonight, because I'll be working on them after this call. And so you'll know very soon where you fall on the waiting list and if you can expect to be moving on to the next step in the process to lease one of these apartments. So there's going to be 2 lottery drawings tonight, local preference and the general drawing. And I'm going to be using a website called random.org to complete the drawing. So I'm going to screen share that for you so you can see it. The first drawing is that local preference drawing that I mentioned. There were 27 local preference households in this lottery. And I'm going to insert the application numbers for those 27 local preference households into the website that I mentioned. And it's going to digitally generate a random order. We like to do it this way, especially with larger lotteries, to truly keep the results random rather than pulling numbers from a box. And then after the local preference drawing, I'll do the same for all 72 lottery households. I'll insert the 72 lottery application numbers, and the list randomizer function on this website will digitally generate that order. The randomization of those lottery numbers is going to be instantaneous, so you'll be able to see it on your screen rather than needing to listen for your lottery number. So just to give you an idea of what that is going to look like, I'm going to screen share for you right now, and anybody who has their computer screen on can see. I'm just going to go to random.org. And I'm going to share my screen right now so you can see what it looks like. All right, so here's the website, random.org. I'm going to scroll down to list randomizer. And when I copy and paste the lottery numbers into this box, and I click randomize, it's going to randomize the numbers for me, and that is the lottery drawing. Simple as that. In this case, just to give you a demonstration, I'm just going to write 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's not a lottery application number. This is just for demonstration. I'm going to click randomize, and you're going to see that it spit out the random order. So number 4 was first, 3 was second, and so forth. So that is what the drawing is going to entail in just a few minutes. So I'm going to stop sharing for now, just to get things set up and let you know a few more pieces of info. So like I said, when you're watching the drawing tonight, you're not going to know exactly where you fall on the waiting list, because we do have these priorities to take into consideration. But after the lottery, hopefully by 10 p.m. tonight or so, an email will be sent to all lottery households with information on next steps. So this is going to be an email from info@sebhousing.com, and a copy of the waiting list will be attached, as well as another attachment with just some information about who applied. And if you applied for more than one unit size, so maybe you applied for both a 1-bedroom and a 2-bedroom, you're going to see that your lottery application number is on more than one waiting list. So make sure that you're looking for that, because you will be listed more than once if you applied for 2-bedroom sizes. So when you receive that email, you're going to see that there are some lottery application numbers highlighted in green, and that's because those households are going to be moving forward right away to the next step in the process, which is to complete a lease application with the leasing office or the management company over at Alta. Your contact information is going to be shared with the leasing office after the lottery, and we'll also share with you the general leasing office contact information in the email later on tonight. Keep in mind, too, that the leasing office is likely going to invite more applicants than there are households, and that's typical because they want to make sure that these units are leased as soon as possible. There are going to be applicants, we're sure, that drop off, are no longer interested, maybe are denied later through the process. So if you're not one of the households who has their application number highlighted in green on the waiting list, It doesn't mean that you won't be able to move forward in this process. It just means that it might not be right away. You'd have to wait until households that have more favorable positions than you on the waiting list to drop off. So, and then of course, you won't be contacted at all if the units lease prior to the leasing office coming down the waiting list to your placement. So for example, there's only one 3-bedroom apartment, but there's 38 applicants. So if the first person on that waiting list, the person with the first position on the waiting list leases the apartment, there's no other 3-bedroom apartments to lease that are affordable. So you'll remain on the waiting list. You just won't be contacted until, you know, that person vacates or if another unit becomes available. But likely, usually what happens is, you know, it's not usually the first person on the waiting list who leases all of the units. So if, you know, the first 3 people on the waiting list are denied or who drop off the waiting list for any reason, you may be contacted if you're in the 4th position, for example. So if you're found lease eligible by the leasing office, you'll be able to select and reserve one of the units. If you're not one of the top households on the waiting list, again, you won't be moving forward in the process until people ahead of you have dropped off or all of the units are leased. So it's important to keep in mind, you haven't submitted any income information to SCB Housing yet. We've only done your initial program screening of your household based off of what your self-reported income was on your lottery application. So even if you're the top person on the waiting list, if you're currently renting, you don't want to give notice to your property owner yet, you still have a couple screenings to go through. So you're going to do the lease screening with the leasing office, and then also SCB Housing after the lease screening will be asking for your income, asset, and tax documentation to be able to confirm your eligibility for the affordable housing program after you've reserved one of the apartments. Speaking of sending in information to SCB Housing eventually, all of you should have received the documentation requirements guide, which was an attachment or a link that was sent to you back when you received your lottery application number. That is a document, it's 10 pages or so, that gives more information about what information you might need to submit to us further on in this process. So for example, how many pay stubs and how many tax returns, bank statements, that sort of thing. So take a look at that. You'll have about 10 days to get that information into SCB Housing once you're at that point in the process. The first affordable units at Alta French Hill are scheduled to be available for occupancy in February, with additional units becoming available in the spring. So there shouldn't be too much of a wait after all of your screenings to be able to sign a lease and schedule a lease date. And then finally, we just always like to remind households, anyone who's living in an affordable apartment on this program, you'll be required to have a recertification each year with the leasing office. So you want to maintain, a folder or something with your records, taxes, income statements, that sort of thing. Because if you were to lease a unit, say for March 1st of this year, sometime around the new year, or maybe even in late fall or early December next year, you would be starting the recertification process with the leasing office to confirm your income. Are there any questions before I run the drawing? I'm going to do that now. And I will screen share again once I have the website up. All right, there's no questions. I'm going to screen share again, and we'll get on with it. All right, so here's the website again. I have a Excel spreadsheet here with the local preference application numbers. So there's 27 numbers here, I believe. Yep, it goes down to 28 on the left side there. That's just because it's a column header. So there's 27 numbers here. These represent the local preference household. And just give me one moment here. One second. I'm just going to mute myself for a second. I just want to check one thing. All right, sorry about that. So you should see my screen again here. I was just double checking those local drawing numbers because I noticed that 1 through 4 are there, but that's just a coincidence. So that is correct. All right, so 27 households here. I'm going to take these 27 numbers. This is going to be the local preference drawing for Alta, French Hill, and Marlborough. I'm back on random.org. I'm going to go over to list randomizer. I'm going to drop those 27 numbers into the list randomizer function here. And when I press randomize, that's going to be the local preference drawing for this lottery. So I'm going to do that now. You can see there were 27 items on the list. This is the order of priority for local preference units. But every household will have a placement on the local preference drawing list. Just local preference households will have priority. So I'm going to copy and paste these over here so I can show you the results. And just give me 1 second to make these a little bit easier to see. And then in just a moment, I'm going to do the general drawing, which is going to include all 72 households. I'm just going to hide this column so you don't get confused. All right, so this is the local preference drawing here. I'm going to save the results of that. And I'll come back, and if you were a local preference household, we can look up your number in just a moment. Now I'm going to hop back over to random.org. And we're going to do the general drawing with all 72 households. So I'm going to go back to my spreadsheet. I have another tab here for general. These are the 72 households or application numbers that represent the households in this drawing. So again, I'm going to copy and paste so we can do this drawing digitally using this automatic function here. So 72 total applicants for Alta, French Hill, and Marlborough. This is the general drawing, which includes everyone. Randomized, and this is the result. So again, I'm just going to take the results here and put them into the spreadsheet so it's a little easier for you to see. And anyone who wants me to look up where your number fell, I can do that. I'm also going to scroll down so you'll be able to see it on the screen. If you haven't joined by phone, if you have joined by phone, I'll have to look it up for you. So here's the local preference drawing. I'm going to scroll down. As you can see, the first person or the first application number drawn in the local preference drawing is A.0071. We don't know if that person is a type 1. We don't know what unit size they applied for. So not telling you a whole lot, but in general, it is, more beneficial to you if you're called, if your number is further up, not further down in the wait list. Okay, so there is the local preference drawing. This is the general drawing. I'm going to try to make this a little bigger for on your screen there. As you can see, the first application number that was drawn in the general drawing was A.0035. We don't know if that person applied for the same bedroom size that you did. So your application number, I'm going to scroll down a little bit. Your application number might be further down the list, but you're actually will have a higher position on the waiting list or vice versa. You don't really know right now. I'll scroll down to the end and then just so you can see the results here. And then anyone who didn't see their number or who wants me to locate it for them, you can let me know. There's only, I think, 7 of you on the call right now. And you can either let me know in the chat function what your number is so I can look that up for you, or you can unmute yourself and let me know. And again, these are not the waiting list yet. These are just the results from the drawing. So the lottery was run. There was 2 drawings, the local preference drawing, the general drawing, and I will sort the results and send you the waiting list tonight so you'll know more about next steps at that point when you see where your position is on the waiting list. Would anybody like me to look it up, or were you all able to locate it, your lottery application number? Scrolling down one more time. All right, if no one has any questions, I'm going to start sorting the results. And like I said, the email with the waiting list, you should receive that in the next few hours, and it will have the waiting list attached to it. If you have any questions on that once you get it, you can always reply, let us know. If you can't find your number, if you're not sure how to read it, that's why we're here. So please give us a shout if you're not sure after reading the materials what you're looking at. And thanks again for joining, and we look forward to working with you in the next steps. Have a good night.